On today's show, a guide to successful Facebook groups for musicians.
This is 30-Minute Music Marketing.
30-Minute Music Marketing for musicians who want to get better at marketing their music.
Hello, I'm Sheldon with his cat.
And hello, I'm Greg with a coffee.
And this is 30-Minute Music Marketing, the show for independent artists and DIY musicians who want to get better at marketing their music. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you can't see my cat. However, I am being invaded by a feline. I'm going to have to get rid of him, but just goes to show you how friendly and impersonal this particular show is, Greg. Oh, blimey, we're doing another one fairly much straight after our last one. People will talk, Greg. People will talk.
And if people can hear background noise, I'll be honest, it's too hot to keep the windows shut.
We are in a heat wave in the UK. I've got a pint of water to try and rehydrate myself throughout this particular communique. In fact, we have had some correspondence of late, which went something along the lines of, enjoy the show, chaps. However, if you're supposed to be all about marketing, looking at your YouTube view numbers, you don't seem to be doing very well in marketing your own sort of podcast type video. Couple of things to remember. In terms of this particular show, the podcast numbers are often 2 or 3 times more than the video views because people like to get their information on a podcast because you can listen to it while you're driving or while you're out and about. But what you're probably doing is you're comparing what we do against other people who are producing music marketing content. And what you've got to remember is that the content that they produce is content marketing for their music marketing businesses. So they will be selling at the back end some probably course or guides or whatever. So they'll be trying to charge people eventually. So what that means is if ever they produce any content, they will probably put a lot of time and money into marketing it so it gets viewership. So ultimately at the back end, they can sell some of their products. You own a recording studio and rehearsal rooms. I'm in a band myself and I do other bits and bobs. And we just do this out of the goodness of our hearts, don't we, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing in the sense of like we just relay our experiences on on what we do for a living. This is just something that we do as to reiterate our experiences, really.
Yeah, and these are real world experiences. The one thing I would say, if any person is trying to sell, if anyone's a musician out there and is trying to sell you music marketing courses or what have you, just check out their Spotify plays, check out their YouTube view numbers, check out how many people they have on their socials. Admittedly, that's only one particular metric of success, but it possibly gives you some indication as to how successful their music career is and maybe should be when they're trying to tell you how to market their music. It's sort of like, okay, let's have a look at how you've marketed your music. And if you feel as though those numbers don't necessarily correlate with what you're buying, because obviously they should be able to demonstrate. I mean, and I'm very much of the person that, okay, if I'm trying to tell people about how to market a live show and get your fans to gigs, I can show you plenty of footage of of crowded and sold out gigs. So there's my particular evidence. But anyway, that was just a little aside and a little intro to this week's episode, which is all about Facebook groups, Greg.
They've been around for quite a while, haven't they?
They have been around for quite a while. And as I might have mentioned previously on the podcast, for years and years and years, I put off creating a Facebook group for the band that I am in. I thought it'd be, is it going to be too much work? Do I really need one if I've got a Facebook page? But I think it was in January of 2020. So that's a good 18 months.
That was when the world was a normal place.
When the world was a normal place. I started my Facebook group, and I think certainly in the past 18 months, it has been one of the best ways of not necessarily marketing my music, but the best community engagement tool, the best tool that I've had in terms of talking to my fans and getting them engaged and getting them particularly excited about whatever I've got coming up next. So I would recommend that everybody, if you've got a Facebook page for your music, you should probably have an ancillary Facebook group running alongside. And this particular episode is going to be telling you maybe all the necessary things that you need to either action or think about as you go about doing that, Greg. Because it's been such a success for me, I think that certainly if you've got an active Facebook following for your music, that you need to run a Facebook group alongside.
People wondered what I was doing. I'd plugged my MacBook charger in, but I've got to plug it into the actual laptop.
You don't want to be running out of power mid-episode.
No, we don't. Okay, Sheldon, what is the difference between a Facebook page and a Facebook group?
Well, pages are normally run by businesses, personalities, musicians. If you're a musician or an artist, a Facebook page is something that you control. You're in charge. It's you that's primarily posting the content, which is hopefully going to be engaged by your audience, which is the followers on your Facebook page. Hopefully they're going to interact with it. So you're in charge. It's very much a broadcasting medium. There's you're broadcasting to your fans, and that's fine. That's the experience that most people who have the Facebook page can fully appreciate. Yeah, go on.
So has your connection and your engagement on your Facebook group been more successful than, say, like the newcomer on the scene, TikTok?
They operate in slightly different ways. And again, TikTok is more, it's a content delivery system for the most part. I mean, obviously, if you go live on TikTok, if you have X number of followers, you have the privileges to go live. But when you think about it, TikTok is just a short form video platform.
Yeah.
But what a Facebook group is, it's a community, and it's a community of like-minded individuals, and we're almost at the same sort of level. I think about a Facebook page in terms of the hierarchy. You as the artist are at the top, and sort of your fans are at the bottom, and you're sort of sending content and videos and posts and pictures down to them. In a Facebook group, it's a community where everyone is very much on the same sort of level, and they're based primarily around similar sort of interests. So obviously, the interesting question in terms of your Facebook group, if you're a musician and you set up a Facebook group, the interest is still going to be you and your music. But the idea is that you're not necessarily talking just about your music. You're talking about all your shared interests. And if you've got a strong sort of brand that's based around your music, those interests should probably and hopefully be embedded within your content and your songs. So people should be able to identify and know what these interests are. So as way of an example, I am in a group for a comedy podcast that I follow. And I think there's about 7,000 or 8,000 people in this particular group, including the person whose podcast it is. But the majority of posts, I'd say 95% of them are people who consume and like the podcast. And they're talking not really about the podcast, but about the topic of comedy and stand-up comedy and live comedy and humour that's in the news. Those are the interests that are based around this particular group. So yes, it's based around the podcast, but there's only a very small proportion of posts that are about the podcasts. The posts are about the shared interests.
It's a bit like throwing a stone into a pond. There's that ripple out where the conversation expands and the interaction on many things.
Yeah. And the thing to remember is that everyone, whereas if you've got a Facebook page as an artist, you're talking about yourself, you're talking about your shows, your gigs, your...
It's me, advert.
Yes, very, very much so. But in a Facebook group, the idea is that all the members contribute easily. So yes, those people could still be talking about you, but hey, it's not you that's
Yeah.
talking about you. The pressure's off you in some respect.
It then becomes a conversation rather than an advert.
Yeah. And these are very much sort of natural conversations that aren't necessarily sort of prompted. So in my Facebook group, we get people talking about the region that we live in. We get people posting funny memes, because what I do musically has the heck of a lot of humor in there. So it's like humor is a very strong part of our group. If people find a funny meme, they will post it in there. They will maybe post old gig photos. We will talk about the food that we like, maybe the drinks that we like. So again, all these shared interests. So it's based around our music and our sort of brand, but it's very much a community of people talking about the things that they like, and they're doing most of the talking. It takes the pressure off you. I'm obviously, dipping in and maybe encouraging these conversations once they start. But really, I'm not the lead instigator. So that's great that almost like this community can not necessarily exist without me.
Yeah.
But I'm not the prime
You're
mover.
not having to, basically hold everyone's hand.
So,
okay.
So it's great. This community thrives and exists because of me as a musician, but I don't have to be looking at it and curating it all the time, which is great. And that's great because it if you've got an Instagram feed, it's like if you don't post something on your page, like nothing happens. Yeah. Whereas things, if you've got an active,
there's an organic kind of
things will just keep on happening without your intervention. That's great.
Okay. Well, so it obviously can be quite rewarding and engaging for the participants, which is wonderful. But people are lazy, Sheldon.
We know they're lazy.
How can you get your followers to join your group where, as you've just discussed, they're more than likely going to have a good time?
Right. Well, what I did was I said that I'm starting a Facebook group. However, this particular group is only for our top fans. It's only for our super fans. So what I was trying to do is I was trying to make it so that if my followers or any of my followers self-identified as a super fan, I was signaling and signposting that this would be the place for them to be. So rather than just going, oh, we've got a group, if you want to join it, that'd be great. I was saying to people, look, if you really like us, and obviously if you have followers, there should be people who like you more so than other followers. It's like, but what you need to do is you need to move over there, because it's a place only for super fans and super followers. So it gives them almost a way to identify and show off to other people within the group. So again, that's almost like trying to create a community of like-minded people from the off. Also, as well, I said, right, in this particular group, there's going to be exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. So I provided a bit of an incentive in that particular way. So I said that this is super fans only, so that's a good opportunity for super fans to identify and badge themselves. Thus, people, I think they still do on main Facebook pages. They get awarded stars if they're constantly posting to your page. So people like those particular accolades, and indeed within Facebook groups, you get similar accolades as well if you're constantly starting conversations or chipping into conversations. So people do like those little sort of rewards. So I just more or less sort of said to people, come to this group if you're a big fan, and the big fans did so. And I said, here's the incentive. You're going to get extra bits and pieces that you can't get anywhere else.
So basically, it's almost like a VIP kind of.
Very much so.
VIP room.
So yeah, I called my group a super special fan zone, but you could call it a VIP area, the velvet rope, whatever
It's not a bad
means
album
of
by Janet Jackson.
it is. Is that the one with the quite alluring cover?
It's the one with the remix of Joni Mitchell's "Got Till It's Gone."
Right. Yeah. No, I think that might be
possibly.
the one where she's got nothing on.
No, that was Janet.
Oh,
That was the album that came out after Rhythm Nation, which is amazing album. Sorry, I digress. Actually, whilst we're on the subject of digressing, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis have actually released their first ever album. Who were the producers for Janet?
What, their own solo album?
Yeah, it's taken 40 years.
Well,
better late
you
than
get it
never.
right.
So, but then again, Brian Wilson, 35 years for Smile, was it?
Yeah, he had stuff going on, though.
That's one way of putting it. So, I mean, I've joined a few Facebook groups. The ones that I've seen tend to be buy and sell groups for the local area.
Okay, yeah.
There's some strange people out there.
There are always, whenever you get communities, there are strange people.
Southport, especially. No offense to people from Southport, but there does seem to
I don't think we've got a big Southport contingency on the podcast.
So if you've got your fans posting in your group,
yeah.
When you post in a group, how does it differ to what you post there to what you post on your Facebook page? I know you've mentioned the content and the exclusive stuff, but is there anything else that you do differently on your Facebook group to your Facebook page?
So we know from previous conversations passing on this podcast that to get the organic reach on your Facebook page, then you need to be posting content that gets the necessary likes, comments, and shares, because if it doesn't, then it won't get the reach and people won't see it. So, it's a game. We have to play the game, and we have to cater our content for our main Facebook page almost in a quite sensationalist sort of way in order to provoke and get that response from our audience, in order that content will therefore reach a bigger audience. I think the stuff that I post in the group, it's a little bit more informal. It's a little bit more intimate. The exclusive content that I mentioned previously, it does tend to be more of the behind the scenes sort of stuff, the stuff that really perhaps more the super fans would necessarily.
Is it a little bit like what they used to do on the X Factor, where they'd have the show and then they'd have...
Yeah, it's not necessarily the main sort of programming. Are you familiar with the term B-roll footage in the world of movie making? So it's behind the scenes stuff. It's the stuff that really the nerdy people, especially,
well, I guess
sort of like.
As a point in, they'd born a series of films.
Yeah.
And have you watched the one where they literally drive down the Vegas Strip and literally drive into one of the casinos?
I haven't, but it does sound almost quite similar to a scene from Con Air.
Yeah, a little bit. But you kind of go, you look at it, obviously, I have quite an interest in filming and stuff like this. And, you want to find the behind the scenes stuff, because you're like, how on earth did you manage to do this? I've been down Vegas Strip, and to close that off for filming and then drive into one of the casinos, you just kind of go, logistically, how on earth did you do that? And then I found out that they use some of the cameras that we've got here and stuff like that. So you're like, oh, I'll be honest, they weren't the main ones. They were the ones that, well, if it gets broken, it doesn't matter. So you're like, oh, okay. But it's
so what I find is this is good in a way, for the simple reason that sort of content, because it's not the sort of content that would receive those likes, comments, and shares on the main page. It's not really effective for the main sort of channels. So if you've got a particular space whereby it does get the engagement because it is specifically playing to that particular audience, it means that it's actually used and doesn't just sit as a file on an SD card in your camera sort of way.
Yeah, that's
so
a good point.
It's more sort of informal stuff. It's more behind the scenes sort of stuff. And the way that I talk to people on there, it's probably a little bit more informal. I'm less of a performer and a person as I might be on the main Facebook page, and it is like I'm sort of talking to you. It's more sort of intimate, because I know these are the people that really do support me and my music career and probably spend a little bit more money as well. So I'm,
Well,
I'm willing to be more of a, an equal to them rather
Okay.
than, that sort of artist fan distant sort of relationship.
Well, now that you brought cash into the situation, this was my next question,
Go on.
because obviously I think us musicians or muso people have taken a bit of a financial hit over the last 18 months.
Tell me,
Frighteningly
in fact,
so.
I have got to go to our accountants and drop the pitiful books off to be certified later in the day.
So, as a musician,
Yeah,
can you make money from a Facebook group?
you can.
Show me the money, Sheldon.
The simplest way to do it is to make your Facebook group a private Facebook group, and you can just say, right, for X amount of pounds, I'm going to be posting all this exclusive content in there. You might choose to do exclusive, live streams and performances from there. And because of that, because those things have value, you can say, right, well, I'm going to charge you a one-off fee, or I'm going to be charging you a yearly fee. And it could just be a nominal amount, in terms of, you could just say, a one-off cost of £10, or you could say, I'm going to be putting loads of stuff on there. And you can almost treat it as, like a Patreon-esque.
Well, this was a question I was going to ask. I mean, how does this end up becoming different to, say, Patreon, or the other one, just fans?
Oh, OnlyFans.
That
just shows that you've not joined anywhere on OnlyFans for that exclusive content. Well,
unless I presume, is it OnlyFans? Is that where you literally have to remove items of clothing?
Some people don't. Some people, just produce, again, exclusive content. And it depends upon, the relationship that you have with your audience, and perhaps how you go about structuring your music career. And again, if what you produce has value, and if you want to monetize that relationship with yourself and your audience, which you are free to do so, and, as something as successful as OnlyFans has proved, as long as you're giving people value within that paid for community, then by all means do it. You can charge for entry. You can produce exclusive merchandise for sale to people who are only in that group. So, you can say, you can almost post that to your main page and say, if you're a part of this, again, even if it's a free community, join this community, because the link to get this exclusive T-shirt or this exclusive CD, that's only for the super fans within this particular group. So that's a way of making money.
I think, thinking about it whilst you were talking, I guess a big difference between OnlyFans and, say, Patreon, which I presume there's a price barrier to be able to connect with that exclusive content, whereas at least with a Facebook group, there is no price barrier to becoming a member, is there? You just join if you want.
Yeah.
Other than clicking on a mouse, that's your only expenditure.
And again, it just depends upon whether you think you've got the amount of super fans who would be willing to pay, some sort of monetary value to join. And again, that will be different for each and every person. Okay,
so any other tips?
What I would say is you can find some fans to act as moderators. Moderators are always good because they can keep an eye on the group, potentially when you're not there. I'm quite lucky in terms of the 18 months or so that I've been running my band's Facebook group. There's only been one big argument.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. All my lot tend to be very well behaved because, again, people with similar interests do tend to be passionate about.
Are you able to divulge?
One particular fan said, "Don't like what you do and everything, but I don't like your new single." And then everybody piled on, going, "Whoa, you're supposed to be a fan. You're supposed to support them for everything." And eventually, I just had to dip in there and just go, "Look, everybody, let's keep it civil. Calm down. Everybody will like everything. It's fine not to like this one particular thing."
So, was this the one that we recently created a video?
Shot the video for you that I still need to edit. So so moderators can help in that regard. Again, if like I said, that my particular group thankfully doesn't need much in the way of moderation, but I've got a couple of people, one of which is probably one of our biggest super fans, and she approves membership for the group, and she pops in there, and if somebody asks a question saying, "Oh, does anybody know, how to get maybe tickets to this particular live stream or whatever?" She'll pop in there, and she'll almost be like my a personal assistant. That's a way to think about it for the group. That's good. You could have maybe some sort of, create some sort of physical space for members of the group. You could say, right, if I'm playing a particular show, let's all meet up by the merch stall, half an hour before we go on. And again, we'll have a nice little private sort of chat, that sort of thing. Or you could arrange, if all your super fans tend to be based in one particular location, you could arrange for some sort of, meet up independent from any sort of live shows. So don't just think that a Facebook group has to be
online.
Find online. You can pivot that and make it a real physical space as well. So yeah, if you've got a modest to a good Facebook active sort of following, in summary, I think a Facebook page is something that you should consider. Run alongside, run your group alongside your Facebook page, and I think in terms of fan engagement, it will really benefit your music career.
Okay, so there you go. That is the joy and wonder of Facebook groups.
Facebook groups. Don't forget, if you've got any questions or comments about music marketing and potentially how to further your music career, get in touch with the show by whatever means. That will probably normally be sticking a YouTube comment down below. And maybe we can even do a particular episode about something that you'd like us to talk about.
And I think probably the next one we'll actually be able to do in person.
Fingers crossed. As long as you can supply pints of water and a nice, cool room in which to do it.
Yeah, I'll give it a go.
I'll give it a go.
So
like, comment. Yeah, it's social media. Do your thing. Give us a thumbs up. Put a comment on a podcast platform of your choice, and if you like what you hear and you think as though you've got some benefit from it, why not pass this particular episode on our YouTube channel or podcast or whatever to a musician friend? They probably appreciate the advice as well.
Exactly. So there you go. Thank you for
Until
watching.
Next time, you take care, and we'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Ta-da.